Differences between developed country versus developing country. Developed country versus developing country. A country having an effective rate of industrialization and individual income is known as developed country. Whereas, developing country is a country which has a slow rate of industrialization and low per capita income. The unemployment and poverty rates are comparatively lower in developed country. Whereas, the unemployment and poverty rates are generally higher in developing country. Infant mortality rate, death rate and birth rate is low while the life expectancy rate is high in developed country. Whereas, high infant mortality rate, death rate and birth rate, along with low life expectancy rate in developing country. The living conditions in developed country are good. Whereas, the living conditions in developing country are moderate. Developed country generates more revenue from industrial sector. Whereas, developing country generates more revenue from service sector. Industrial growth is high in developed country. Whereas, the developing countries rely on the developed countries for their growth. Standard of living are generally higher in developed countries. Whereas, standard of living are comparatively lower in developing countries. Distribution of income in developed countries are equal. Whereas, distribution of income in developing countries are unequal. Factors of production in developed countries are effectively utilized. Whereas, factors of production in developing countries are ineffectively utilized. In developed countries, high GDP per capita, high literacy rates, advanced infrastructure, high life expectancy rate, low population growth rate, high human development index, and strong and stable political structure are the main factors under observation. Whereas, in developing countries, low GDP per capita, lower literacy rates, less developed infrastructure, lower life expectancy rate, high population growth rate, low human development index and often unstable political structure are the main factors under observation. The economy in developed countries are termed as diversified economy. Whereas, the economy in developing countries are largely dependent on a few sectors. The developed countries are giving more emphasis on tertiary and quaternary sectors. Whereas, the developing countries are giving more emphasis on primary and secondary sectors. The developed countries are advanced in use of technology and innovation. Whereas, the developing countries are having lag or gap in use of technology and innovation. In short, developed countries are industrialized, have high standards of living, and have strong economic growth. Whereas, developing countries are agrarian, or at least not industrialized, have lower standards of living, and have a very weak economy with slow or non-existent growth. Kindly subscribe my YouTube channel Thesis Helper. Thanks for watching.